Hello and welcome back once again to the Wrestling Rant. Tonight was Raw, of course. It's May 27th, 2013, and they were in Calgary, Canada. The show starts off, of course, with more recapping because, of course. Right, starts with more recapping, and the first recap, of course, because there has to be more than one. The first one is, of course, Heyman and Curtis Axel and the whole thing with Triple H last week from Raw. So they do that. And then after that, they recap Cena and Ryback, the ending to the match at Extreme Rules, and then Ryback coming out on the ambulance last week on Raw. Yada, yada, yada. A whole bunch of recapping and a whole bunch of dumb shit. So, and it's all stuff that we've seen before, so there's no point in going over any of it. Whatever. The show finally starts, and out comes John Cena, of course, because we have to just go ahead and, instantly start with the boring shit. Cena comes out and he starts talking. And he comes out and he starts talking, and he addresses Ryback's challenge from last week, the ambulance match, and he says, you know what? We do need something that's definitive and, we need something definitive, something that's final, something that's really feud-ending and worthy of being a feud-ender. And so he suggests a 3 stages of hell match, with the first part being a lumberjack match, because lumberjack matches are always big feud enders, right? And then the second stage would be a tables match, because, Cena has a lot of good luck in tables matches. And then, if the third stage is necessary, it would be an ambulance match. Whatever. Ryback comes out, and he's going over what Cena said. He said, you know what, you're right, it should be final, So, I guess they apparently agreed, so that's what it's gonna be, I guess. I don't really get it, but during Ryback's promo, he says, say hello to Satan. And he's, of course, referring to himself. Don't know what the fuck. But Ryback pisses off. And then Cena's still in the ring, and out comes Heyman for some reason. And he introduces Curtis Axel, of course. And I noticed that they've already changed his music. Last week it was the remixed Mr. Perfect theme. Now it's not. The intro to it is still the same, but then it cuts into different music. So I'm like, well, what the hell? But oh well. They're talking, yada yada, and they're talking, and essentially the gist of it is Cena wants to take on Curtis Axel later tonight. And so Heyman agrees, and Axel agrees, so later on we're going to have us a match. Whatever. The next segment is out comes Alberto Del Rio, of course introduced by Ricardo Rodriguez, of course. And this is a rematch from SmackDown or Superstars or something where they had another match. And of course they had their match last week on Raw. And Big E Langston comes out. I suppose I should have mentioned that a little bit sooner. But whatever. So Big E comes out, and they're going to have a rubber match, because apparently it's tied 1-1 between these two. Yada, yada, yada. Match, not all that great. And what ends up happening is AJ gets... she gets up on the apron and she starts messing with one of the turnbuckle pads. She takes the pad covering off. And of course, this was during Del Rio trying to get the arm breaker on Big E, so it at least distracted the referee away from that. Not that Big E tapped or anything, but whatever. So they're going over that, and Del Rio is able to reverse Big E and throw Big E into the exposed turnbuckle, and then he rolls him up like a schoolboy roll-up, and he gets the win. Del Rio wins. And then after the match, AJ is pretty damn mad at Big E, I mean, obviously. And then it's kind of looking like Big E's kind of pissed at AJ for being mad at him. And, you know, whatever. But they leave, and they cut to the next segment, which is Kane backstage in the locker room. And of course, he's there with Daniel Bryan, who's pacing back and forth like a crazy person. And he's still pissed off about this weakest link thing. Kane starts talking to him, saying, "You're not the weakest link, yada yada yada, whatever." Bryan's telling him, "No, what you say doesn't matter, blah." But then, all of a sudden, since they're in Calgary, Bret Hart pops up. And, of course, Bryan practically wets himself because it's Bret Hart. And Bret basically says the same damn thing Kane said, saying, "You're better than this, you're tougher than this, you and Kane can beat the Shield," and yada yada yada. And then Bret goes away, and Kane's like, "Why is it that when I say that to you, you ignore me, but when Bret Hart says it, it's like gospel?" And Bryan says, "Because he's Bret Hart, and you're just Kane." So he's like burying Kane. Whatever. They cut back out to the arena, and it's time for another rematch for the US title. Of course, since the last rematch got thrown out because of interference by the Shield, Kofi's gonna get another rematch. So Ambrose comes out, and then Kofi comes out, and they start going for their US title match. Now, the match was actually fairly decent. You know, Ambrose is so good, even he can drag that piece of crap Kofi to a decent match. But Ambrose winds up winning with the headlock driver once again. And then Rollins and Reigns come out to celebrate with him. And while they're kind of celebrating, all of a sudden, of course, the stage blows up with Kane's pyro, and out comes Kane and Daniel Bryan. And they start fighting, but Kofi's still laying in the ring knocked out after the finish of the match. And but whatever, they cut to commercial, and when they come back, the match has already started. During the match, Kane and Bryan hit the heart attack on Rollins, I think it was. And of course, the heart attack was the finishing move of Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, the Hart Foundation. And also during this match, a little bit later on, Rollins and Bryan end up on the top rope, and Bryan hits a super back suplex on Rollins. And they cut to commercial shortly after that, and I'm like, yeah, great, they're both down. Cut to commercial at one of the most exciting points in the match. Great idea. They come back, doesn't matter. Brian started doing his comeback combo, but he's in there with Reigns, and Reigns is able to cut him off before he can get the whole thing. And somewhere towards the end of the match, the crowd is chanting, "This is awesome." You know, it's a good match. It went for a good while. And then, let's see, Brian tags in Kane, and so he's going at it with Rollins. And on the outside of the ring, Brian has been beating the hell out of Reigns after doing his little suicide dive on him and all that stuff. And then he gets on the apron and he tries to dive down on Reigns again, but Reigns catches him in basically like a spear, but basically spine busters him on the floor. And this distracts Kane long enough for Rollins to come out of nowhere with his little springboard flying knee to the face, which completely KOs Kane. Rollins covers him and gets the win. So, the Shield, still the tag team champions as well as US champions. So, that happens. And then we get a recap of Cena's stupid promo earlier. Whoop-de-doo. And they say, up next, we're going to have an update on Triple H's condition following what happened to him last week. They come back from the commercial, and they basically say, he'll be okay, and he'll be back next week. Whatever. The Miz comes out. And apparently, he's going to have something to do with the next match, and what exactly he's going to be doing is going to be decided by another stupid Raw Active poll that's being held on their stupid fucking app. And so, they cut to a commercial so the fans can vote on the app, and the choices were he could be guest referee, guest commentator, or guest ring announcer. And I mean, based on those choices, what do you think is going to happen? The only obvious choice is referee. And of course, that's what he actually is. They come back, like, overwhelmingly 73, I think, % of the vote was referee, so Miz is going to be the referee. Out comes Wade Barrett. And then out comes Johnny Fandango. They come out, and they start having their match with The Miz as the referee. And what happens, the finish of the match is Barrett is getting Johnny set up in the ropes for this goofy clutch knee strikes thing that he does when they're tied up in the ropes. And after he does the knee strikes, he likes to bounce off the other ropes and then come and boot the guy in the face. Well, as he's getting ready to come back to boot him, Miz gets in the way to check on Johnny. And Barrett's like, what the fuck? So he grabs Miz, throws him the hell out of the way. But it doesn't really faze Miz much. Barrett kicks Johnny, knocks him out of the ring, and then Miz grabs Barrett, skull-crushing finales him, plants him on his face. Johnny rolls back in the ring, covers Barrett, and Miz counts, 1, 2, 3, Johnny wins. And then I think Summer got into the ring to help Johnny up, and as she's doing this, Miz kicks Johnny in the face for no reason. And Johnny falls back, Summer falls on top of her, or on top of him, and then Miz counts another pin, Summer pinning Johnny. Don't know why, but what the fuck ever. They cut backstage, and out of nowhere, a bearded Shawn Michaels appears. And he's talking to John Cena backstage. Don't know what Shawn's doing here because they're in Canada. And of course, during this segment, the people were chanting, "You screwed Brett," you know, they still won't let it go. But whatever. I don't remember exactly what Shawn said to John, but John basically threw it in his face or came back with something like, I think Sean was trying to give John some advice, and John was basically like, oh yeah, and this coming from the guy who, contradictory statement here, whatever the fuck. But whatever. And so Cena just kind of walks away, and Sean's just left there kind of dejected. Whatever. They cut back out to the ring, and they're at the end of Tons of Funk's entrance. They're in the ring dancing, doing their thing, and then they do their pose and they get their pyro. And you notice that Khali and Natalya are standing in the background. And they're kind of dancing too. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? And then they show over by the announcer desk, 3MB is standing there. And I'm like, oh great, we get a crappy 6-man tag match. And that's exactly what we get. The match sucked. Let's see, I think Slater gets squashed by Brodus. Whatever, match ends. Tons of Funk and Khali win. And then, I don't remember who grabs a mic, but somebody starts talking, and apparently it's Natalya's birthday. And it's cool because they're in Canada. Oh, yay. So, whoever it is announces, Khali is going to sing Happy Birthday for Natalya. And Khali singing is one of the last goddamn things I wanted to hear. He butchers the Happy Birthday song, by the way. And this is going to come back up later. So, just keep that in mind. After that whole crap, they say that Paul Heyman's going to be up next on the highlight reel with Chris Jericho. Okay, great. They cut to commercial, they come back, Jericho comes out and he talks, he introduces Heyman. Heyman comes out and talks. And they get to talking about CM Punk. Because apparently Jericho really wants to say something about Punk. I don't get it. But Heyman ends up dissing Bret Hart. And then there's lots and lots of talking about Punk. And apparently Jericho wants a match about Punk. He starts talking about, oh, the Payback pay-per-view is coming up. And it's in Chicago, Punk's hometown. And he's talking, all this crap because of... he's talking, Jericho's basically saying that since Punk has been gone for so long, he no longer has the right to call himself the best in the world. Don't really know what bearing that has on anything, but whatever. Like I said, Jericho wants a match against Punk at Payback. And Heyman accepts on Punk's behalf, since, of course, he's his agent or whatever the fuck. Yada, yada, yada. I think they cut to another commercial break, and they come back, and Kaitlyn and Natalya are already in the ring. And like I said, this is where that comes back up. Out come the Bella Twins. And they come out, and so it's going to be a Divas tag match between, of course, the Bellas and Kaitlyn and Natalya. And the match... not very good, as you might imagine. The finish is... one of the Bellas is in there with Natalya. And... Kaitlyn had been thrown out of the ring after she had speared the other Bella. And... Kaitlyn, I guess, jumped back into the ring and went to spear the Bella that was in the ring, but she moves out of the way, and Kaitlyn spears Natalya instead. And then the Bella just kind of shrugs and throws Kaitlyn back the fuck out of the ring. And then she very cocky pins Natalya and beats her. Natalya loses... in her home country, in her hometown, I think, and on her birthday. And then, as the Bellas are leaving, they both have mics, and they start singing Happy Birthday to Natalya as well. And they say, Happy Birthday, dear loser. So, they're really just rubbing it in. It's really lame that the WWE keeps doing this crap. But whatever. They cut backstage in the locker room, and there's Curtis Axel again. And he's in there, and then all of a sudden Bret Hart pops up again. And he starts talking to Axel. And Bret's saying, you know, I knew your father, yada yada yada, all this, blah blah. Axel's like, you don't know me, you don't know anything about me. Boring promo, goes nowhere, whoop-de-doo. They go back to the ring, and out comes Randy Orton. And they announce that up next, it's a tag team match, Randy and Sheamus versus the... Sheamus. Randy and Sheamus versus the Rhodes Scholars, Cody Rhodes and Damian Sandow. And it cuts to commercial before anybody else is introduced. It's just Randy. During the commercial, I don't even really want to bring this up because he doesn't matter and he won't go anywhere, I guarantee it. But during the commercial, they play a vignette for Bray Wyatt, the fat pant load who ain't worth shit from NXT with the stupid fucking gimmick, the no mic skills, and the crap wrestling ability. This guy is one of the two sons of Erwin R. Shyster, IRS, the guy who would have done nothing had it been for the fact that he wound up teaming with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. I hate to say it, but IRS was a decent wrestler, but he had nothing else. He had no charisma and no mic skills. So, them trying to put this much faith in both of his sons, and his other son was Bo Dallas. And we already know that he had a very short-lived run on Raw where he had this feud against Wade Barrett that went nowhere. I think Barrett squashed him. So, what do you think's going to happen with Bray Wyatt? Probably the same thing. And apparently not only is Wyatt coming up, but so are his two flunkies, Eric Rowan and Luke Harper. And they're a couple of hosses who ain't worth shit either. So, this is a completely pointless move. It won't go anywhere. He'll come out, he'll probably get buried within 3 months, and then he'll be gone again. Either they'll demote his ass back down to NXT, or they'll just release him entirely. So whoop-de-doo. But we finally come back to commercial, and Sheamus is being introduced, and the match finally starts. Out comes, of course, the Rhodes Scholars, and the match starts. This match goes on way too damn long, and finally, they put us out of our misery. Sheamus hits the brogue kick on Sandow, and that's match. Whoop-de-doo. So, yeah. Finally, after that, we finally get around to... John Cena comes out. It's time for his match with Curtis Axel. So Cena comes out, Axel comes out with Heyman. They start having their match. About a minute or two into the match, most of the crowd that you can see, they're looking over at something else. They're not even paying attention to the match. They're looking over towards the stage. And, I don't know if this is maybe like foreshadowing to what happens, but I also noticed that as this is happening, the production crew is like doing a lot of close-up shots on Cena and Axel to make sure that they don't show the crowd not giving a shit about the match. You know? They're trying to hide that, and whatever. They finally cut up to a wide shot, and McGillicuddy stands up, and he yells at the crowd, "You should be paying attention to me!" Whatever. Axel ends up hitting the Mr. Perfect neck whip, and he also does the Perfect Plex, but of course Super Cena's not going to be beaten by that, and he kicks out. And then all of a sudden, you start hearing the sirens again. Out comes the ambulance. And for no apparent reason, Cena just decides to completely bail on the match and go over to the ambulance to see what the fuck. And he gets counted out, like a dumbass. So Axel wins. But anyways, Cena goes over to the ambulance, and he opens the back door of it, and there's nothing inside. And then out of nowhere comes Ryback from behind, clocks Cena, they're fighting, they fight their way up onto the stage, and Ryback goes to put Cena through the LED board again like he did at Extreme Rules. Cena reverses it, goes for the attitude adjustment, but Ryback gets out of that, and he shoves Cena off the stage. Now, it doesn't really matter, because he just kind of falls off and does a little parkour roll, and nothing really happens. But we go back to the ring announcer, and he says, "Here's your winner by countout, Curtis Axel." So Curtis Axel has now beaten Triple H, although not really, because no official announcement was ever made on that match. And now he's also beaten John Cena by countout. Really don't know why they're wasting this crap on McGillicuddy. He's not that good. But that's it for Raw. That was it for Raw. Show really was not all that great this time around. And you know, they're talking about Punk coming back, and I hope so, because the show has sucked without him. It really has. And apparently Jericho wants another piece. Now, the problem I have with this is Punk beat the shit out of Jericho last year at WrestleMania, and last year at Extreme Rules as well, if I remember correctly. So why Jericho would want another shot at getting his ass kicked again, that baffles me. I'm really hoping that if this actually happens, I'm hoping that Punk comes out at Payback. You know, his music hits, he comes out, and he's just wearing all black. Plain black ring gear, his boots, you know, trunks, everything, all black, black t-shirt. And he's, you know, he hasn't shaved, he's just looking like he don't give a fuck. His hair's grown out a little bit, like he hasn't kept up on shaving his head or whatever. And he doesn't do any of his normal mannerisms. He doesn't get down, do the little wristwatch thing, the It's Clobbering Time. He just walks down to the ring, stone-faced, real slow. Gets in the ring and proceeds to just beat the holy fuck out of Jericho. Beat him to a bloody pulp. And I don't even care if the match starts or not. As a matter of fact, it would probably be best to not have it start at all. Punk comes out, just goes crazy on Jericho, beats him to a bloody pulp, and then leaves without saying a word. And they can explain it as, oh, after he lost to The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and when he decided to leave and take a break, something snapped. And he just don't give a fuck no more. He just wants to kill anybody who gets in his way. So Jericho wanted a piece. He's the first one that gets annihilated. Don't know where this is going. I thought Jericho was feuding with Fandango, but I guess they just decided to kill that feud off. I guess Fandango's going to feud with Wade Barrett for no reason, which is stupid, because they're both heels, and unless they're going to turn Johnny face, which I doubt, they sure as hell ain't going to turn Wade face. I don't think that's even possible right now. But I don't see why they're going to do this. Maybe they're going to have Johnny feud with The Miz. That might make a little bit more sense, because Miz is actually a face. But whatever. Really don't see where they're going with this crap, and I don't see where they're going with Bray Wyatt. Because he really ain't nothing special. So, but whatever. That concludes this episode of the Wrestling Rant. May 27th, 2013, from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Raw sucked tonight. I can't wait to start doing my TEW Let's Play. It's coming along. I've decided to go with TEW 2013, if anyone cares. And I found out that I'm going to have to buy the full version of the game because otherwise I'm not going to be able to start in any month besides January. That's one of the limitations to the trial version of the game. And what I want to do is start in June, which is next month. I have a couple of ideas already going. I have the database already set up, the company, the TV shows, pay-per-views. I have a bunch of people signed to contracts already, and it's all going good. I just need to get the full version bought and get it going. I don't know if anybody really cares. I got to thinking about it. I'm thinking, there's no music in the game, so the only audio is going to be my voice and maybe the sound of the mouse clicking. So that might be kind of boring. And I don't know about the legalities of me using real music to spice up the show. Even if I give credit to the artists, they'll probably still want to take the video down, whatever, but I don't know. But yeah, there's that. So that will conclude this episode of the Wrestling Rant once again. We will see you next time for SmackDown, or possibly a different topic if I come up with something. We will see you next time.